All right, now we get into the fusing. Right, okay. So I'll read because we only have 20 minutes before, yeah. So volume 17, May 10, 1925. As I fuse myself, Louisa is writing, an immense void, all of light, becomes present before my mind, such that one can find neither the extent of its height nor of its depth, nor the boundaries on the right or on the left, nor those on the front or on the back. In the midst of this immensity, at a point extremely high, I seem to see the divinity or the three divine persons waiting for me. But this always mentally. Okay, so she's experiencing entering the divine world. The first stage of fusing, entering. And I don't know how a little girl comes out of me. But it is my own self. Maybe it is my little soul. But it is moving to see this little girl placing herself on the way within this immense empty space, all alone, shy, walking on tiptoe, with her eyes always fixed on the place where she sees the three divine persons, her family. Because she fears that if she lowers her gaze in that immense void, she wouldn't know at what point she would end up. All her strength is in that gaze fixed on high. In fact, as her gaze is corresponded by the gaze of the supreme height, she draws strength along the way. Now, as she arrives before them, she plunges herself with her face into that void to adore the divine majesty. Before one hand, but one hand from the divine persons raises the little girl, and they say to her, "Our daughter, the little daughter of our world, come into our arms." In hearing this, she becomes festive and makes the three divine persons festive as they await the carrying out of her office entrusted to her by them. And with a grace typical of a little girl, she says, so up to there, she entered that sea of light. And now she's before the blessed Trinity. The first thing she will do, she will love them. She will receive their love. So she says, I come to adore you, to bless you, to thank you for all. She didn't say, I come to do it for myself. I do it for all. So we were all with Louisa when she did it. She did it for us as well. That experience she had. She did it in our name, and she obtained the grace for us in the future. I come to bind to your throne all human wills of all generations, from the first to the last man, so that all may recognize your supreme will, adore it, love it, and give it life within their souls. Supreme Majesty, in this immense void, there are all creatures, and I want to take them all in order to place them in your holy will, so that all may return to the origin from which they came, that is your will. This is why I have come into your paternal arms to bring you all your children and brothers of mine, and bind them all with your will. And in the name of all and for all, I want to repair you and give you the homage and the glory as if all done your most holy will. But please, I pray you, let there be no more separation between the divine will and a human will. It's a little girl who asked this of you, and I know that you can deny nothing to the little ones. Beautiful, isn't it? Powerful, really powerful. And that is what we are doing. Each one of us is that little girl that goes before God, taking our love on behalf of everyone, so that each one would benefit. So you give God, you blow your kiss to Jesus, and then you take Jesus' love to everyone. And then you come back to Jesus with their thank you. So we operate between God and all of creation, not just the humans, angels, creation. We operate in between. Our office is in between God and between creation. In between. And the Lord may use us to carry the cross on behalf of the world, on behalf of our brothers and sisters. And if we do have a cross to carry, remember, you're not doing it alone. You're doing it with Jesus for everyone. If you're suffering cancer, you're doing it for everyone. Whoever had cancer, who have cancer. If you're suffering some kind of illness, you're not alone. If you're suffering depression or mental illness or attacks or temptations, you're not alone. You are carrying on your shoulders, or rather Jesus in you carrying on his shoulders, many, 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 past, present, and future. There are two entries about fusion that really, really key. One of them is this, January 4th, 1925, where Jesus speak about fusion in a very, very powerful way. And he explained the whole thing. It's not just one act, it's something you keep doing for life. So January 4th, 1925, I think that was volume 17. I forgot to put the volume. Fusing is the most solemn, the greatest and most important act of your whole life. Having completed my whole day, I was thinking to myself, what else is left for me to do? Okay, so now Louisa has fused herself. She started her day with the prevenient act, which we all should start our day with, the prevenient act. Why is it called the prevenient? Because it's from the Latin words, means preceding, before the act. That goes before. That's what it means. That goes before the acts in the divine world. So that's from a Latin word, prevenient act. In the prevenient act, you're already fusing yourself in Jesus and you're doing like mini rounds, like we've done in the morning with Father Yunus's prayer. By the way, this is on that place where the documents. So I've got two sides, so you can print them on two sides, two different ways of doing prevenient acts in the morning, and you can laminate it, and you can do this every day, which is really powerful start of the day. Now, the prevenient act set the scene. Now, Louisa here is at the end of her day, and Jesus is asking her to do one more fusion in the divine one. The way I remember to do my fusion is with Mary. I do it in the morning, then lunchtime or so, I remember Mary, yes, my mother, I love you. And I say my mother, and then I fuse myself again. And then at the end of the day, when I say the evening prayer and the night prayer, I remember to do that again. So at least 3 times a day, you try to make the intention of doing a thorough fusion and some kind of rounds, small rounds in the divine one. In between, when, for example, you are going around, driving the car, you would do your acts in the divine world. So you would say, Jesus is driving, and I'm driving with Jesus. If you are eating, Jesus is eating, and I'm eating with Jesus. Or you can say, divine will come and eat in my eating, drive in my driving, clean in my cleaning, etc. When you wash your hand, you can say, Jesus, wash with me. And as I wash my hand with this material water, wash the souls of sin. So you can be creative. You can expand. So just to give you examples of acts. Okay. Now we're gonna go back to the passage. So at the end of her day, she's doing it. She was thinking to herself, "What else left to me to do?" And in my interior, I heard Jesus speak to her and say, "You have to do the most important thing, your last act of fusing yourself in the divine one." So according to my usual way, I began to fuse all of my poor being in the supreme will. And while I was doing this, it seemed to me that the heavens were open and I was going to meet the whole celestial court. So that's God, Mary, Joseph, the saints, the angels. And all of heaven was coming toward me. And my sweet Jesus told me, okay, this entry on the fusion, you need to remember that by heart, because out of the volumes, there are passages and entries that are key, really important. This is one of them. My daughter, fusing yourself in my will is the most solemn, the greatest, the most important act of your whole life. To fuse yourself in my will is to enter the sphere of eternity, to embrace it, to kiss it, and to receive the deposit of the goods which the eternal will contains. Even more, as the soul fuses herself in the supreme volition, all go to meet her in order to deposit in her everything they have. The angels, the saints, the very divinity, they all deposit, knowing that they are depositing in that same well in which everything is safe. Okay, I'm gonna just stop here. So, what's going on? When the soul fuses herself in the divine will, she fuses herself in the eternal act of God that embraces everyone and everything. Now, in the Catechism, we read that the communion of saints in heaven, with the communion of saints, every saint wants to share what they've got with everyone else. That is the nature of love. The nature of love is to give. Remember what St. Paul said, there is more, he quoted Jesus saying, there is more joy in giving than receiving. And that is the case in heaven. There's more joy in giving. So everyone in heaven wants to give, and the more they give, the happier they are. So it is natural that when the soul enters the eternal mode, she's united with everyone else. It's normal that everybody like, wow, now I can access my sister soul. I'm gonna give everything I have, and they kind of compete with each other to give of their riches. That is the nature of love. If you love someone, you want to give a gift after a gift. You want any excuse to give. You just, of course, you don't want to spoil them, but that's on earth. In heaven, there's no spoiling. Okay, so everyone wants to give. So now they give their gifts to the soul. Now the soul in return, when the soul does her acts in the divine world, she gives back to the saints. Because Jesus is using her humanity to divinize their acts, which are in suspense, waiting for someone. Them, they cannot do it anymore. They're in heaven. Their work on earth is over, but they're waiting for someone on earth to live in the divine world and start divinizing their acts. So when their acts are divinized on earth, they receive the glory as if they did it. They did it. So say, for example, Moses, as great as he is, he did not receive Holy Communion. Now, when you receive Holy Communion in the divine world, Moses is receiving the effect as if he received Holy Communion divinely. Do you see? So
Sorry, is that automatic or do we have to desire it?
it happens automatically, but desiring it intensifies love. So it's better to remember and desire. So when I receive communion, I would say, and I have some good passages on Louisa receiving communion and Jesus saying to her, um, she says to her, Jesus, I want to love you with your blessed mother. And Jesus is not happy enough. He's really happy, but he's like, and what else, my daughter? I want to love you on behalf of all the saints. And he says, wonderful. What else, my daughter? All the angels. Wonderful. What else, my daughter? The souls in purgatory. And then he said, like, what else? He says, all of the irrational being, the sun, the moon, the stars. And he's like, I'm happy now. Yeah. So when you receive Holy Communion, yes, yes, the desire, the intensity of love makes the act more efficacious, more powerful. So yes, trying to remember your brothers and sisters in purgatory, and your, and then especially if it's a saint's feast day. Say Jesus, like Louisa did when with Saint Aloysius. On his feast day, she said, as a gift to Saint Aloysius, on his feast day, I'm going to share my communion with him. Yeah. And then Jesus appeared to her and said, oh, you don't know what you see, what you did in heaven. She said, what did I do? He said, you threw a party, you know, a feast. You set all of heaven in motion. He said, Saint Aloysius was so filled with divine glory that he couldn't contain it himself. He went around in heaven giving the graces to everyone. So, you know, he filled all of heaven. You set heaven in motion, you know. So that is what takes place when especially when you receive Holy Communion, and especially when you suffer. When you suffer, because suffering is very is it has, you know, all of the acts are divine acts, but suffering, embracing suffering is something else. Is something else. So when you suffer in the divine world, it's really powerful because Jesus says, I am in that pain. He even says, I am that pain. You know, you become like another Christ on the cross. Yeah, co-redeeming with the Christ. With the Christ, He's using you. So suffering in the divine world is very, very powerful. Very powerful. Okay, so we go back now to the thing. So now her turn, her acts in the divine world. So she received it from the saint. Now her turn by living her day. Even more, in receiving these goods with her act in the divine world, the soul multiplies them and gives back double glory and honor to the whole of heaven. Do you see Jesus' word? Double glory. Double glory. Why? Because they are divinized acts of the saints. So by fusing yourself in my will, you put heaven and earth in motion. It is a new feast for the whole embryon. And since to fuse oneself in my will is to love and to give for all and for each one without excluding anyone, because that's the nature of God, universal. He gives to everyone. In my goodness, so as not to let myself be surpassed in love by the creatures, I place in her all the goods of all and all possible goods which I contain within me. Nor can there be a lack, nor there can be lack of space in which to place all goods, because my will is immense and lends itself to receiving everything. If you knew what you do and what happens when you fuse yourself in my will, you would burn with the desire to fuse yourself continuously. So the saints give you your gifts, but God gives you Himself, gives you everything He has with everything He contains. Now, the next one is very powerful because some people ask me, Well, okay, I'm living in the divine world. Does that give me license to do everything? Jesus wants to eat this chocolate. Jesus wants to smoke. Jesus wants to, I don't know, things like, yeah. Does that give me license to do everything? No, there's a martyrdom element in fusing. The martyrdom element is when you discern, is this his will or not? So I have a very funny story because there is a lady who introduced me to the divine will, an Irish lady, and her husband. I don't know. He jokes a lot. I don't know if that is a joke or real, but he smokes a lot. So he says to his wife, after he knew about the divine will, okay, my lovely, I'm going outside. Jesus wants to smoke, and I want to smoke with him. So she just laughed and say, "Oh no, no, no! You didn't get it at all." Jesus does not want to smoke. That's the martyrdom aspect. Yes. So he said it a few times. I don't know if he joked about it or he meant it. But yes. So yes, there's a martyrdom aspect. It's not a license to do everything. You need to discern. You need to discern if that is his will or not, because the divine will is built on the order of grace. It does not negate everything that gone before it. But as you grow in that gift, you will be inclined to know what the Lord wants. You will be inclined to it. So suppose I mean many of people here are ladies, so I'm going to speak. So I'm sure you go shopping a lot, and it takes you ages to pick up the right thing to wear. Okay, I'm generalizing. I don't know, but okay. So what you could say is Jesus, what because in the divine world we must forget self. Okay, we must forget self. But you look at self in relation to Jesus. You are his spouse. So you can say to Jesus, Jesus, what would you like to get your beloved? What would you like me to wear? Do that and see what happens. He'll put the right item at the right price at a very discounted price in the front of you. Yeah, honestly. Yeah. Okay. True. I tried it. He does it. Try it. He loves these encounters of love. He loves it. He loves it. Yeah, because you have not thought of yourself. I'm not buying for myself. I'm buying because what would you like to give to your beloved to wear? So it's in relation to him. You're thinking about self, but in relation to him. Yeah, and do this with everything else. Okay, let's go back to the passage. My daughter, how can it be not important to make known that fusing oneself in my will is to live in it? The soul who fuses herself in my will receives, as though in deposit, all my divine and eternal goods. The very saints compete among themselves in order to deposit their merits in the soul fused in my will, because they feel in her the glory, the power of my will, and they feel glorified in a divine manner by the littleness of the creature. Amazing. Now, the martyrdom aspect. Listen, my daughter, to live in my will surpasses even martyrdom in marriage. Martyrdom kills the body, but living in my will is like a divine hand that kills one's will and gives one the nobility of a divine martyrdom. And every time the soul decides to live in my will, my volition prepares the blow in order to kill the human will and forms the noble martyrdom of the soul. In fact, human will and divine will do not bond together. One has to give the place to the other, and the human will must content itself with remaining extinguished under the power of the divine will. So every time you dispose yourself to live in my volition, you dispose yourself to undergo the martyrdom of your will. See then what it means to fuse oneself in my will. It is to be the continuous martyr of my supreme will. And you think it's trivial or something unimportant? So yes, there is a martyrdom aspect. So it means you are disposed at the Lord's hand. You know, you are letting Him lead. And yes, you may have an urge to do something, and the Lord says no, that's not good, and that is a martyrdom because because it's to kill that human will that wants to do something, and you really want to do it. It's hard. It's very hard.